Today, I wanted to talk about when God opens doors. He's just, he's doing a lot. God is really moving in this season. I mean, he's really, truly moving. He's always moving, but he's just moving a lot this season. And the thing about with God moving, and I go over this a lot, but the thing about when God's moving and when he does things and he calls you to do things, it gets to the point that fear tries to take over. You're real excited at first when he tells you something. He gives you something, he does something, he opens that door, and you're so excited. And then fear jumps in because the adversary tries to stop you from going to where God has called you to go. So I want to talk a little bit about open doors. And like I tell you all the time, I can only give you so much on Sunday. Please try to read some scriptures for yourself. You'll find that when you read the Bible, there's stories in the Bible, stories about people like you and me, but they're true stories about things that people go through, and it's very encouraging because you'll see that we serve the same God, that exact same God, and he doesn't change for any of us. And you'll see that when God called these people on, especially when he called them in high things to do or exciting things and blessed things, they were always so excited when they first heard the word on fire, but then they went through, especially when you're doing ministry for God, or especially when you're doing something that can glorify God. At that moment, you're going to have some trials that you're going to go through, but you have to realize and know that it's never your battle. It's never something you have to take and do. God, when he calls you to do it, he's basically saying, I can do it through you. You can never do it on your own in the first place, no matter how hard you try, no matter how righteous you are, how saved you are, how consistent you are. You could never do what he's calling you to do on your own. You would never be able to do it on your own. So you have to first realize, okay, God, you got this. So even when you're thanking him for it, when he calls you to do something, you're first of all saying, okay, God, you got this, because you'll never be able to do it. So when the adversary tries to place fear on you, you can rebuke it. I rebuke this in the name of Jesus, because what remains is that if it doesn't happen, it's on the Lord, because it's all about him. Anything. One thing that I've come to realize in this long life that I've lived, I've come to realize that if God can't do it, it can't be done. I don't even try worrying about things, getting all upset about it. I pray about it. I fast on things, and then I let it go. Because if God can't do it, I surely can't do it. So I don't worry about it. We worry about more than what we have to. If you truly believe God is all that this word says that he is, then you let it go. He either is God or he's not God. He either can do it or he can't. He either is in control of everything or he's not in control of nothing. You have to know him and know who he is. So anyways, I want to talk about some doors that being open. And like I said, because I know God is moving in this season. And when he's moving, like I said, it seems like everything breaks loose. Like everything is just a battle. It seems like it, but it truly is not. There's some things you're going through, and you have to always remember is that, and I say this a lot, but you have to always remember that even though God wants to bless you, he still wants the glory. He still wants the honor. And while he's blessing you, he wants a lot of people blessed as well. And he wants people to see things that you're going through in your life so they can grab hold of him. And when I was reading these different stories and different things, I was realizing with each of these people, he done really things that he could have changed that very moment. But he let them drag through things because it wasn't just about the one person. He wanted to bless them, but he wanted thousands of people to be saved by seeing what they went through. Because people will change their walk if they see miracles take place in your life. If they see that God is truly the God that we claim he is, if they can see God do some movement, people will turn their ways. But they don't always go by what you're saying, because a lot of them haven't seen things happen in their life. But if they see something that really goes through your life, they're going to say, there has to be a God. Because there is no way that could have taken place. There is no way that you came out of this. There is no way you can be okay from all of this. They'll see where God moves in your life. But like I said, a lot of times we don't want to go through anything. We don't want to go through anything. So God can't take you to where he wants to take you. Because a lot of times he says, this is where I would have you to be at. And this is what I want for you. But if I take you down this journey, you're going to let go. You're going to let go. And some people will actually let go of God. They'll actually let go if God takes them through much, because they'll say, well, God's not on my side. He doesn't love me. He doesn't care. Why am I going through this? But yet you see everybody in the Bible that he took to high levels. They went through major storms that we don't even go through. Some of our storms are just a wind blowing through. They're not even major storms. These people have went through major storms, and those that held on, they succeeded in what God said. Those that let go, they didn't accomplish it. And he was consistent with each and every person you read in the story. Those that kept the faith, they may have went through some things, and when you really read the stories, some of them went through for years, 13 years, 17 years. It wasn't overnight things. We'll pray for a week, 2 weeks, maybe give them a month. If we really fasting and doing what we're supposed to, we might give God that. But let him not show up. We will let go. We will change our occupation. We'll find something else to do. We'll let go of the vision, let go of the dream. We'll say, God obviously does not want this for me, or these doors would have opened. But it don't work like that. I haven't seen that in any of the stories that I read. I've seen when he opened doors for them, when he called them to do things, that's when all the battles broke out. That's when they fought. And they fought and they fought. But God was always in the midst, like behind the scene, doing stuff that people didn't know, making people stay asleep longer than they should have done, and all different kinds of things, putting clouds there and fire there and things that you didn't even see. God was there when you didn't even know he was there. He's blocking things that you don't even see. God is always in the midst of what he's calling you to do, if he's calling you to do it. That's why I said, don't be just listening when people's telling you. You better hear God for yourself. Is God calling you to do this? Or is it something that somebody told you were capable of doing it? We have to be in tune with God. We have to be led by God. It's an individual walk, and you need to know God for yourself. Anyway, some scriptures that I'm going to go over. I can write some of them down, but just think about them. If we go to 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 9. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 9. For a great door and effectual is open unto me, and there are many adversaries. And when I was looking up effectual, it means a very promising opportunity, or able to produce. A very promising opportunity, or able to produce, which means when the door opens up, it's something great. It is something great. It's going to be a great opportunity. It's going to be amazing. It's not just any door he's opening up in your life. It's a blessing. It's something that he's going to give you when he opens that door. But then it also says, but there's many adversaries. It means as soon as that door opens up in your life, Satan and all his little helpers around that door trying to stop you from going through. Trying to stop you from going through. Because the only thing that can stop you from going through are you yourself. Because the adversary is not in control of you. He's not in control of you. And the adversary only can do as much as God allows him to do in the first place. So it says if God is opening the door for you, then of course he wants you to go through the door. It's a door that he didn't have to open it in the first place. Because he says he's the one that'll open doors that no man can shut. But he also will shut door that no man can open. He's God. So once he opens that door for you, at that moment it says, oh man, God's got a lot for me now. Things are getting ready to take place. The promises, the blessings, wow, I'm getting ready to walk in something great. And that's where now we got to step it up in our faith. Now it's all about trusting him and believing. Because at this moment, with all those little demons around there trying to stop you, at this moment, it's going to look like, wow. You might lose your job. They may end up taking the car. That's when things really get bad. A sickness may try to come on you. With somebody that said they were going to help you up to that moment, up to that very moment, and then they say, I can't do it now. I thought I could give you this, but something else came up. Things that you were dependent on, things that you were relying on. Because up to that moment, because keep in mind, you're going after something, and you're trying, and you're struggling, and you're praying, and you're fasting. Now, all of a sudden, the door has opened up, and we're happy about that because God has finally came through. And at that moment, you see everything. It's like right there. But then everything tries to stop you. Doubt tries to step in. It's like, oh, should I have been doing that? Did God really speak that to me? Lord, I don't know. I don't know. And then you're thinking about it and you're thinking about it. And then before you know, it's like, this can't be God. Maybe I heard him wrong. And then we let go. And then we don't go through. The door was already open there. You didn't go through. You turned and you went the other way because you didn't want to deal with the battle. You didn't want to deal with the things it was. You said, because I lost the job, because they took the house, because they took the car, because this and that, they walked away. I can't. You have to always know that whatever God tells you to do, you don't need other people to help you. You don't need nobody but God. You don't need anybody but God. And it always looks like it's at the dimmest time. It looks like when there's just no way out. But that makes it so awesome, because that's when God can really show up in your life, because God doesn't want nobody getting his glory but him. He don't want you to tell somebody, my mom helped me to get this. I was left this. My best friend helped me for that. He doesn't want other people getting his glory. You're going to be able to say, when they asked you, how'd you get there, and say, but God. But God. You're not even going to know. A lot of times people ask you, well, I don't even know. God you're not even going to know, because God just works like that. You don't know how he came through. You just know you on the other side. I don't know how I got there. I really don't even know. All you know, it's God done it. And that's what he wants. He wants the glory in everything that he does. And we don't want to go through anything. But he's saying, I want to bless you. I want the glory, but I want other people to come along with this ride. I want to give people some time to get it right. And that's what he's doing. So these are some of the stories that I'm kind of going to browse through them, but I want you to see some of the different people that went through these hard times where God told them to do something, and they went through hard times in their life, and they still held on. And in the end, they were blessed, and so many other people were blessed. So we have to hold on to him. If we go to Exodus chapter 14, just a couple different stories, like I said, just things where you can see for yourself. Exodus chapter 14, starting at 13. And this, of course, is when Moses was, setting the people free. He went there. They went through so many things again. First of all, they're in bondage for years and years and years. And finally, God sends somebody, which was Moses, to set them free. And he goes there, and, all the different plagues that he allowed those people to see, to let him know, I'm God. I'm moving in the midst of this. He's doing miracles. He's doing something. He's doing all kinds of things that they can say, I'm taking you out of this. He didn't just come and remove them. They saw a lot of different things, what God did before he was set. So now they're going, and they're in the midst of everything. But now there again, like I said, when it looks like we're over the trials and the tribulations, then something major comes. And so they didn't got out of bondage, and they're there. And now it's like we're trapped in the wilderness. We're trapped. Now doubt's coming in. I thought you set us free. You could have left me there. But it seemed, but now there's no way you can do this. So I'm going to read some of this, and then I'm going to go over it as I talk through it as I read it. 13. And Moses said unto the people, fear ye not, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. Now you look even here in this, not only were the people, having doubt, Moses, which saw the burning bush, Moses was seeing a lot. There was a lot of things that Moses was seeing. It wasn't like, he should have doubted God in any aspect of it. He came through time and time and time again when he called him to do something. But yet right here, doubt is coming on him. And God's saying, what you crying for? What are you standing here crying about? Tell him to keep going. And in his mind, can you think about it? He's telling you to do something, and you follow them all along. Now there's the sea in front of you, and he's telling them still go forward. And it's like, well, how are we getting over there? We think in ourselves, it's like, it's easy to trust him when we can see how we can do it. Is when we can't see, we let go. But anybody can trust something that they see. If we're trusting God, we got to trust him and just let it go. We got to believe him for the other than things, because like I said, it's this spiritual world that we're living in. And we keep trying to live in the fleshly world. We want to see things, know how it's going to happen, or in our mind, it can't happen. And God said, don't you know who you're serving? How many times do I got to keep doing miracles in your life? You know, can he do one or two or three, or does he have to do a miracle each and every day of your life to know he is still God? When is it going to get to the point that you can just trust him, even though you see nothing, even though nothing makes sense? And you just trust him to know that he's God. Because this is Moses. They're already afraid. They already know doubt, and they shouldn't have had doubt either, because they saw a lot of things that take place. But you would think at least Moses wouldn't have had the doubt at this moment, but he does. And 15 again says, and the Lord said unto Moses, wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel that they go forward. But lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it, and the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, and I will get me honor upon Pharaoh, and upon his hosts, and upon the chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh and his chariots and upon his horsemen. He's telling him what to do. He's saying, but I'm going to get honor out of all of this. They are going to know who I am. When it's all said and done, they're going to know I am God of everything. They're not going to have any doubt about it. They're going to know just who I am. And see, in order for people to get total rooted and grounded in God, they have to see God do some things. But we don't want him doing nothing in our life. We want to be the one to go to the top, but we don't want no tests in our life. But everybody that went through someplace, and everybody that was totally blessed, went through major things in their life. That's why you got to really think, do I want to do ministry, or don't I want to do ministry? Do I want God to lead me, or don't I? Because when you're saying you want to be a part of God, you're going to go through some things. You're going to go through some things, because you're going to have to trust him to know that he's in it. So he's telling them right there, he said, they're going to know, everybody's going to know when it's all said and done who I am. And then when he goes on, it says, and the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed and went behind them, and the pillar of the cloud went from before their face and stood behind them. And it came between the camp and the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. It was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to thee, so that the one came not near to the other all night. You see, even he has the clouds and stuff working on his behalf. When he's going to do something, he's in the midst of it. He does things that we could never, ever do. He protected them that they couldn't even get near him, because he's in control of everything. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on the right hand and on the left. And the Egyptians pursued and went in after them in the midst of the sea, even Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch, the Lord looked into the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of the fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariots' wheels, and they drove them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. They knew that God was fighting for them. They seen, wow, God is doing them. They were afraid then. They seen what God was doing, because there's only person that could have done this stuff was God. So now they want to flee, but God's like, no, it's too late, because God's in control of every aspect of this. 26 says, and the Lord said unto Moses, stretch out thy hand over the sea and over the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it. And the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea, and the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen and all the hosts of Pharaoh that came into the sea after. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea and on the waters, in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on the right hand and on the left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw the great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord and believed in the Lord and his servant Moses. Now you see all that they had to go through, but it was all about, because God could have stopped them from the beginning. He could have destroyed them way back then. He didn't have to allow them to do all that they did, but he wanted to get the glory and he wanted to get the honor. And he wanted them to know I am God, but he also wanted them to go forward to know, look what I'm doing for you, so that you don't doubt. But we know, and we may not know, if you don't, you need to read the whole story of all that, but you'll see there was time they continued to doubt. Because you can believe for that moment when something is taking place, but then you let go. It's like if God don't show you a miracle right then and there, you let go. They went through a lot of things, but there was nothing that they were fighting in themselves. All they had to do was keep walking. They had to keep walking. They had to do nothing else but believe and keep walking. God was doing everything else. You're going to see some storms in your life. It's going to look like there's time that there's a wall there and there's no way. There's no way I can get over this. And you'll say in yourself, I can't, but God can. That's why you give it to him and you let it go. You do what you can do, and then you let God do the rest. You do what you can do, and you let God do the rest. But with them, they were doubting from day one. Even on the journey that they were taking them, if you go backward, it says, I could have taken them the shorter route. He said, but if I take you the shorter route, you're going to see so much, and you're going to let go before I even get you to the other side. So I'm going to have to take you the long route, because there's some things you're not going to be able to handle. So we can say, I want to do ministry, I want to do this, but can you handle some of the things you're going to go through? Because God's always, showing somebody else. When you look at Daniel in the lion's den, it's the same thing. They're telling him, you better stop praying. They even set up a trap so he can get caught, because there's people out there trying to always set you up anyways. People are always looking at you because there's always somebody jealous of you and always somebody upset. And we know that to be factual because it says in the book of John, they're going to hate you just because I called you. So that means people are going to hate you just because you're called by God. So if people are hating you, that means they're going to try to do things to keep you back anyways. Everybody that's smiling in your face ain't in your corner. There's a lot of people that don't like the fact that you're going forward. So there's always going to be people doing that little tricky stuff in your life, saying stuff, acting like they're for you, but they're against you. Right. They tried to set up Daniel, acting like they're in his corner, saying all kind of things and telling the king something else. But what they really wanted to do, they wanted to come against him because they didn't like what he was doing. They saw the favor on his life and they didn't like it. So they set up this thing with the king saying that everybody here needs to bow down before you, which made sense to the king. That sounds like a good thing. Let everybody bow down to me. And if they don't, then they were going to be destroyed. But the king actually liked Daniel. He actually liked him. But when he gave that creed and said, okay, if they don't bow down, if they bow to anybody else, they're going to be killed. So they send that out. Well, Daniel didn't care. Daniel knew who his God was, and he wasn't bending for anything or no one. So each and every day, 3 times a day, he got on his knees and he prayed to his God, and he opened the windows up. He didn't care. He wasn't ashamed of the God that he was praying to. He knew the God that he was praying to, and he was going to continue doing what he always done. And he prayed to his God 3 times a day. They saw him. They went to the king. They said, is people supposed to be praying to other gods? The king said, no. He said, well, this Daniel's still doing it. And the king was sorrowful in his heart because he really didn't want to destroy him. But because his word went out, the word was important back then. When you said something, you had to stick to it. Our word don't mean nothing now. If we said somebody changed, we changed. But back then, the word meant something. So he couldn't change what he was doing. So he had to get rid of him. So they threw him in the lion's den. And, but of course, he didn't die because when he was thrown in the lion's den, God was in the lion's den with him. And he kept the lion's mouth sealed. And he stayed in there all night long. And then the king went there after him. And the king was praying for him too. And he went there that morning calling out Daniel's name. And Daniel answered him. And he let Daniel out, at that point, because God, he knew the God that he was serving. You have to know who you're serving. You're going to go through some storms in your life. That's a storm. If somebody tells you they're going to take you to Phoenix Zoo and throw you in the lion's den, if you don't bow down, what are you going to do? You know, and you ain't got to answer now, because don't be lying up in the church. You ain't got to answer. Just think about what you might do if you were asked that question. He was asked that, and he had to go through that, but he still stayed faithful, you know, to his God. He still kept, you know, he stayed faithful. So when he came out, the king knew who his God was. And everybody that accused him, them and their families were thrown in the lion's den. Each of them. And it said the lions ate them before they hit the ground. The lions jumped up after them and their family, and they all were destroyed while accusing them. And he said, now everybody has to serve that same God that Daniel served. So then he switched up who the gods was. So he had to go through something so all of these other people could see who God was. You see, God always loved Daniel. It wasn't that he stopped loving Daniel because Daniel was thrown in there. He could have stopped that from happening. But he wanted the other people to know, I am God. You know, you're serving all these fake gods. You're serving something that isn't real. Let me show you who I am. And I can use my servant because he's faithful. I can throw him in there because he believes me. But he has to have somebody that's faithful and that can stand for him. You can't be wish-washy back and forth. Because you playing games, you thrown in there, you might get ate up. Acting like you love God. Got the holy appearance and the inside all evil and messed up. You either serving him or you're not serving him. It's not a day and time you want to be playing games, because you're going to be playing games with your own self. Because it's a real walk, and it's a really spiritual walk that we're walking. But I'm saying, when you see those different type stories, you have to know that the God we serve is real. All these different things that they go through. So you can't say that you're not going to go through anything, because you might go through something. You might go through something. And then if you go to Acts chapter 16. No, before you go through that, I want to give you another story in Daniel's. It's the book of Daniel's, chapter 13, verse 14. I just want you to see some things that people go through. So when you're going through something, you're saying, I serve this same God. The same God they served is the same God that I'm serving. If he can do it for them, he can do it for me. Daniel's chapter 13. I'm sorry. Daniel's, let me see. These are my notes. That's what happens when you write notes on this paper. Oh, amen. Daniel's chapter 3, verse 14. You said Daniel chapter 13 in Daniel's. Daniel's chapter 3, verse 14. This is another story, and these were actually Daniel's friends. You know, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, same thing. They were, chapter 3, verse 14. They were, again, the king, you know, Nebuchadnezzar, the same thing, wanted them to serve their gods. Same thing, wanted them to serve their God, but they were faithful to the God that they were serving. And they told them the same thing. If you don't bow down and serve my God, you don't deviate from you're going to be thrown into fire. Now I'm going to give you a chance, but you're either going to bow down to mine or you're going to be thrown into fire. Same thing, the three of them. They wouldn't change. So verse 14 says, Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said unto them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, do not ye have my gods, nor worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if ye be ready, that what time ye hear the sound of the instruments, ye fall down and worship the image which I have made. Well, but it will be worshipped now. Ye shall be cast into that same hour into the midst of the burning fiery fires. And who is that God that shall deliver you out of my hands? He's saying, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you one more chance. If you don't bow down and worship my God, this golden image, he says, where's that God you're talking about? Where's that God? Is that God going to help you? You're either going to worship my God, or where's that God that you're talking about? And 16 says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said unto the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this manner. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning furious fire, and he will deliver us out of thine hand, O king. But if not, be it known unto thee, O king, that we will not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou set up. He's saying, my God is more than capable of keeping me from going in this fire. If it be so. Now, I can't speak for him. He knows he can do it. He said, but if he does it, or if he doesn't do it, I'm not serving you. I'm not serving you. And what they end up doing, they end up throwing them in the fire. They end up throwing them into the fire. And when they end up throwing them into the fire, there again, the king looked, he said, wasn't 3 people that I thrown in there? He said, isn't there 4 walking around in here? You know, they're saying there's 4 walking around. And also the people that thrown them in the fire, they got burned up, thrown them in there. The fire was so hot that they got burned up because that's how hot the fire was. So the king's looking and 4 of them's walking around. There was only 3 in there. So we know who the other person was in there. So he tells them to come out. And they come out of the fire. And they said there was nothing burned on them. They didn't even smell like smoke. There was nothing on them, which allows us, and I'm saying we're serving this exact same God. The exact same God that when you're called into something and he opens a door, it doesn't mean you're not going to go through something before you actually accomplish all of those blessings and promises that he says is yours. Because he tells you when the doors open, the promises are there. The opportunity's there. You just got to walk. Don't matter what you're walking through, God has you. It doesn't matter what's taking place. It doesn't matter who your enemy is. It doesn't matter who comes against you. You have to just keep walking through the door because God is there. And when they came out, it said it didn't smell like smoke. You know, there's going to be some things you're going to go in your life. There's some things you're going to go through. You're going to have some testimonies in your life. Those that's willing to go through the test. And you're going to tell some people your story. And they're going to like, what? There is no way. This couldn't have happened to you. You couldn't have been in bondage like this. You couldn't have been that broke. You couldn't have been that abused. You could not have went through that because there's not going to be no signs on you to say this is what you went through. You know, because when God pulls you out, he's going to pull you completely out. And that's what he was saying to them. He says when they came out, there was no signs. You couldn't even smell it on them. There was nothing that said they went through the fire. But sometimes we have to go through something. We have to go through something, and we don't want to go through nothing. We don't want to go through anything. You know, we're saying, Lord, you know, why? Just walk with him. You know, praise him. I've got to the point, and I tell you time and time, and it's the truth, and my kids will tell you this, whenever I go through something, I'm praising him more. I'm lifting him up more. I'm just praising him because I know I'm going through something, but it's actually God taking me through it. I'm always looking for the blessing. I'm always looking what's on the other side because in all these years that I've served him, every trial and tribulation I went through, there was always that blessing on the other side. But you got to stay faithful and you got to stay true and you got to stay loving. You got to continue to praise him and praise him and praise him because God is true and he's faithful. Those doors are going to, do you want them open or don't you want them open? You know, that's your choice. Be careful what you're praying for. Be careful what you want. And he even said, so much is given, much is expected, just like they were saying. You know, God is going to require things from us if he's taking us to the top. These people went through things in their life. They went through, but they stayed faithful. They stayed rooted and they stayed grounded and they came out and they were more blessed than they was. And when not only were they blessed, but look at all the people around that was blessed. You know, when God calls you to something, you look at Joseph. It's same story. The same people went through something. He was called when he was a child. God tells you, just think God wakes you up in the morning, comes to your room and says, people are going to bow down to you. Hey, you happy at that moment. Life is all good. You know, you're going to be a king. You're all happy about it. But as soon as that moment takes place, as soon as he hears God speak that to him, as soon as he hears that, and he tells somebody, his brothers are ready to kill him. The family's ready to kill you. That ain't the outside of the house. Family comes against you inside the house. Cousins, aunts, uncles, brothers, and sisters come against you because now you got calling on your life. They mad with you because you have a calling on your life. You know, they're coming against you. They were trying to kill him because of what God told him.
He didn't ask to be called, second in command. He didn't say they were going to bow down to him. But because of the calling on his life, he went through something. And his story, family members tried to kill him. He ended up being in prison a couple times, got accused of trying to rape somebody. All that he went through. It's like, wait a minute, could you think what he's imagined? Did you not tell me? They supposed to be bowing down to me. There is nothing in this picture looking like somebody bowing down to me. There is nothing in my lifestyle looking like I'm going to be on the other side. Because it doesn't always look like it. That's where faith steps in, trust steps in, and it's like, it don't look like it. You're looking at something. You think I'm here, but you don't know where I'm going. You think this is who I am, but you don't know what's inside of me. You have not seen anything yet where God's getting ready to take me at. So you just keep moving. You keep blessing them. You keep speaking positive. You keep showing them love. You don't care if they're talking about you. You don't care what they're doing, because you know God's taking you someplace. But you got to trust him. You got to hold on, and you got to keep believing. You got to keep believing. Joseph went through for years. It was a lot of years that he went through. It was more than 10 years. He went through a long time. But when it was all said and done, everything that God told him happened. Everything that happened. And the reason he had to go through that was to save his entire family. It was for a purpose and a reason. It was to save his entire family, because God needed somebody that could be on the other side, learn the language, learn what they were doing, so he could bring his people over there. So a lot of times God is training you in things, taking you through something, because it's more than what you see. What God has for us is so much more than what we can think of. It's so much more, but we got to trust him. When the doors open up, you got to trust and know that God is there. You got to trust and know. And that's my message for today.